right. Welcome to, I'm not even going to say the episode, the 22. All right.
Pretty sure. I think you're right.
This week's episode of Washed in the Wild. Hopefully we got some good stuff. I'm going to try to navigate us through all this. We just had an awesome conversation talking about Sunday, but anybody want to pray us in before we start off?
I can. I haven't in a while. So,
Yeah.
Dear Lord, thank you for another week here, being able to take the time to discuss some of our passions and how they relate to our faith. And, you know, as always, ultimately just help us to focus on you and help us to bring attention to you, to whoever may be listening on the radio or YouTube or wherever it may be, first and foremost, because you've given us this opportunity, you've given us everything we have, and we would be remiss to not try to make sure that this is clear and obvious that it's about you more than it is any hunting or fishing or any of that. So in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right, so this week I'm going to try to bring this on home. I thought we'd start with some scriptures. I'm going to bring this home. Overall, we're going to be talking about trail cameras and the scriptural parallel is paths, right? You know, those paths that we go in life that are sometimes the better path and sometimes the not so good path, and how we navigate those times when we're living how we should be and living when we shouldn't be. And I don't know, you guys, and feel free to share any thoughts you have on this, but in my younger years, you know, there was those times when like when you get pulled over by something or you get pulled over by the police and you're like, oh man, what's this? What's going to happen? And now it's like, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not doing anything that I shouldn't be doing wrong. Right. So, just your walk tends to, and who you are tends to change by the, you know, how you're living. Right. And your perspective changes. So one of these scriptures that really jumps out to me, and this one speaks to how you're walking, is Solomon wrote in Proverbs 5. Really, he's talking to his son about his relationship with women, and specifically immoral women and good women, right? And it starts off in verse 20. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman, and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. His own iniquities entrap the wicked man, and he is caught in the cords of his sin. He shall die because of his lack of instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. So there's a couple things I get out of that, and the idea, and I kind of hit on it a little bit, but that when you're doing and you're living in sin, those things that just weigh on your conscience, right? That you're walking through, and you, especially if you think you got away with them, really you didn't, because you know we serve an omnipresent God, right? God knows all things, all the paths that we take. So you may think you're getting away with it, but it's weighing on you, and it's you know, it's driving a wedge in who you are and your relationship with the Creator when you're walking in sin. So it's never I got away with it. I can I can keep living the way I want to live, and then I think there's also a temptation to also feeling like, you know, I can stop this whenever I want, right? You know, I'll just, whatever this thing is I'm doing, it's not in control of me. I'm in control of it. There's many scriptures that talk about how sin births death in our lives, right? And I think it's it's important to understand that as you walk in your walk, that we try to find a level of humility, right? And whether that's confession to others, to our Heavenly Father for sure, to godly people, to priests or to pastors, right? That there is something about confessing to another person that I think is freeing in a lot of ways. So overall, that can get kind of heavy. I don't know what you guys think, but when you walk there, it can kind of feel like, well, God sees everything I'm doing, and I just, we don't, but you can get down the ditch of, I serve this super overbearing God that's going to just be there to strike me down at every corner. We serve an amazing God, but and He's our Father, but there's kind of a ditch there. So doing some yapping here. Do you guys got any thoughts on any of that?
I liked what you said about sin kind of making us feel like we can step out of it at any point, like it seems like that lessens the concern, but in reality it reminds me really directly of like addiction.
Yeah.
And a lot of times addiction is related to sins, but if it's like smoking cigarettes, a lot of or nicotine, whatever it is, people will be like, oh, I could stop whenever I want, I just don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And putting the want to or not aside, it's like you're deceived to think that it is that easy. And sure, there's probably some people out there would be easier for them than others, whatever. But I think that's a good way to like think about it, is like, if it's a repetitive sin or if it's just sin in general that, you keep anything that you keep falling into, it's like, if you think about it as like an addiction, like not only in terms of the problem, but also in terms of the solution, in terms of like, I have to stop this, and anything that gets me close to that will be a problem. Like a lot of people, I feel like it's easy to, if you're trying to stop doing something that you shouldn't be doing, you just kind of like, oh, I just won't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to stop, drinking and you have a problem with that, like a lot of times you're going to stay as far away from drinks as you possibly can, so if you treat it like that, like an addiction in a way, then I feel like a lot of times that can make it easier to remove yourself from the pattern. If you think of it like it is something that you are just like physically kind of bound to in a way, not spiritually, but just like in a fleshly way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think you for sure can't. Well, your soul is impacted by those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of different ways. That's great point. So, and I think that's a great segue, because you talked about it. We serve an amazing God that wants to be there for us, and so Gentry and I were at a funeral this weekend. We lost. It was in December this year. One of my uncles passed away, and he was a great man. He did a lot of, like, one of the most humble people I know. He was and this came out in the funeral. Like he wore 1,000 hats. He just did a ton of things. He was a teacher and tent maker and all these things, right? And so at the funeral, they went through Psalm 23. And it's a very, very, very famous song, but it's yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And that's, I think when you're walking in a would say a more healthy lifestyle, that vision of God always being there, it changes to, He's there for me. Right, to help me through these trials and these tribulations. Like Ryer, like you pointed out, that I acknowledge I'm in addiction, or I'm in sin, whatever I'm doing, and I'm just crying out and say, God, help me. I'm not gonna put myself in bad situations, but when that temptation rises, it's God is there for me. And it was when I was preparing for this, it was. It was a really cool experience at that funeral, and it just it was one of those God moments, I guess you'd say, that hit me, that was like, that there's that psalm means so much to a lot of people, and it's been used in a lot of different ways. And especially when you're struggling with something, that concept of God is always there for you when you're in the valley of the shadow of death, right? You're never alone. And that's such a comfort in a lot of ways. So anyways, those are the big ones. Any thoughts on the shadow of death? That's such an imagery that I always appreciate when I read that.
I think it's really ominous. Yeah. But that's kind of the point. And I think it's easy to think about, kind of like what you said, like it's easy to think about God always watching over you as like this, he's waiting for like the tisk tisk, you've done something wrong. But if you flip the perspective to think about it in a way that's like, he's always watching over me, like as a dad, like he's ready in case something goes wrong, he can be there, and that's the same kind of thing I've tried to shift, like being a new parent, like trying to shift my own mindset for myself, not only as a parent, but for my own like walk in faith is like, obviously my kids, they're little, you can't really even count hardly anything they do as like a sin because, they don't know any better. They don't even know what that means. But I think about it like when they're grown up, everything that I do, I try to focus on it. Like, would I want my son to do that? Because some of it doesn't seem that bad to me because it's like, oh, I've done it before, or I know people that do it or whatever it may be. But if I think about it, like I wouldn't want my son to do that, then to me, I just think like that's probably how God feels, know? So even if it's something that you're like, I'm not really sure if it's a sin, but I think about it from that perspective, a lot of times it'll really clarify like, oh yeah, I probably should stay away from that. You know? So.
Yeah. I think the image I think the Bible really starts to jump off the page because there's so much in there about that father relationship. Mm-hmm. And when you become a father, it gets so much more vivid, right? And it's like, oh, I get it now, right? And you kind of knew before, but when you're completely responsible for something, and it loves you most of the time, and sometimes it tests your patience.
That was a bit of a stink eye there.
That was. Could you refer to what you're talking about here?
Testing my patience? Oh man, how much time do we got?
Oh. We'll have to designate an episode. Yeah. Times Gentry has tested Dan's patience.
Number one.
Well, he also does a really good impersonation of me, and it makes me frustrated because it's funny, and at the same time, it makes me frustrated because it's funny. So getting into trail camps, paths, right? We all have those paths that we go down, and we're creatures of habit. Hopefully we develop good habits, or you can develop bad habits, right? But when we're talked about this a little bit last week, one of my addictions is starting this time of year is I just threw out my trail cams a month ago now, I think, and I pulled the cards once on them. And every year it seems like something changes a little bit. So 4 of the cameras were, steady Eddie spots that I knew I was going to see stuff. One of them was like somebody just built a double fence, and I was like, I don't know, this normal pattern that I thought I was going to have, I moved it, and it was a dud. I got a whole lot of photos of grass, and that's it. So. And it kind of embarrassing.
Well, he moved it from the spot that I had it in, which was the good spot, because it wasn't even it wasn't even facing the double fence.
Yeah,
it was walking along the old railroad grade on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, but there's nothing that we can put there now. Basically, we had this pretty cool you explained what it was, and why we can't use it anymore.
What are we talking about?
What was it?
Oh, the camera stand.
Yeah.
Well, it was just it was 2 of his cameras are mine, first of all. But it was essentially just a camera. I'm fine. It was just a camera stake, and it was like 3-pronged. You just push it into the ground in case you don't have a fence post or a tree or whatever. And it got left in the ground too long this winter, and then the prongs on it sort of broke.
It was
off.
a cheap weld and it busted.
Now that's the story.
Yeah. And so now we don't have anything to put that on
well,
anymore.
we could have just put in a post.
Well, we could have, but
We didn't.
by this, Gentry was not there when the cameras got put out. So
I apologize. I was busy that weekend. I could have gone out the next weekend.
So I moved the cameras somewhere else, and yeah, this is learn from my mistake. It was there's this patch of choke cherries, which it's awesome to have choke cherries. You guys ever make choke cherry jelly? Side? Anybody? Your guys
Back east.
back east? You do?
What's that?
Well, my mother-in-law does, and I'm kind of it's the only real jelly as far as I'm concerned. It's amazing. But anyways. So this choke cherry bush, there's this decent, stem of one of these bushes that's probably like, I don't know, 3 inches in diameter. It wasn't big enough, and that stupid thing, every time the wind came up, it's going all over the place. And it was one of my cheaper cameras that I put there. So you can't really mess with the sensitivity. So it had like 1,000 pictures of grass as it was going through. So don't be doing that. Do you guys have any we'll call it mistakes of, you put cameras somewhere and you ended up with pictures of not what you were looking for?
All the time. I mean, you don't get your camera oriented right and it's grass or a limb that you missed or, all kinds of things like that. And then, or it's, 5,000 pictures of cattle, or sometimes in our case, 1,000 pictures of elk. Delete. Used to be cool. Now it's like, I wish the elk would leave so I could see because when the elk move in, deer move out usually. So, tons of experiences of failing. We do it, usually move a camera or two every year, and it doesn't work out. It's not like we think this is going to be the spot. I don't know how many times you moved cameras last year on your quest for toad.
More than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing I feel like a lot of North Dakotans maybe miss out on a little bit, at least Western, or maybe not North Dakotans, but just Western hunters, is like that more Eastern style, like of denser forest whitetails that have small home ranges. They'll get, you'll have that game of cat and mouse where you're like, whether it's stands or cameras, you're constantly like moving from this tree to that tree, and small areas, or just going over this hilltop trying to lock down this deer. And last year was really the first time that we really focused in on one deer, because we had a really nice deer that's shown up for a few years. But
you said his name was Toad?
That's honestly, it wasn't really like an intentional name. Like we just kept calling him like the big one, or the toad or whatever, just the hog, whatever. It was just, and then that toad just kind of stuck because we just needed something to differentiate by
him.
Hopefully he shows up again this year. I saw him once. The first time I ever hunted him this past season. And I thought I had him pretty well figured out from the cameras, and he came in the opposite direction that I expected. And so I hear hooves coming, and I look over my shoulder, and he's 15 yards directly behind me. And I'm archery hunting, so there was nothing I could do. Like I looked over my shoulder, like kind of with my peripheral vision, and that was it. Like he didn't really spook. He kind of trotted around like out of bow range.
Is this a mule deer then?
He's a whitetail. He trotted around out of bow range, and I could see him, and then he just went back to feeding, like probably 100 yards away, and then kind of disappeared into the timber, which was heart-wrenching. But it was really encouraging because I was like, oh my gosh, like I got right up on him the first time. And then never saw him again on camera or in person the entire rest of the season. So, that's how it goes with those bucks. Yep. Never got a picture of him. We actually left our cameras out partly because of curiosity and partly because of laziness, but we left our cameras out throughout the winter, and we haven't even pulled them yet. And I'm looking forward to it because I'm curious if he's gonna maybe cruise through like late season before he dropped his sheds. I'm not counting on it, but the last 2 or 3 years, he's shown up in the exact same spot within like a week in the beginning, like in the end of the summer, like right before archery season. So I'm hoping that he does that again, because I'm going to have a camera on that tree where he showed up like early this year. But I think there's a good chance that he's never coming back, because deer like that, a lot of times you only get one shot. So
no. One way to find out, and that's the cool thing with this technology, right? Is so you said a few things. And I'm hopefully going to go backwards and forwards here, but when you are picking spots, what are you looking for?
Sign mostly. Scrapes are great. Rubs are great. We don't usually like set on a specific rub unless it's something that we've seen like perennially is getting rubbed. Or like a lot, like we had this one for a number of years that we called it a community rub, because it would just every year it would get hit. You never know. And we put a camera on it, and you'd get however many bucks coming in, passing through there. So once in a while you get something like that, which is a great spot. I never did it, but I did some research last year on doing mock scrapes. So especially if you start in the spring, like this April, May time frame, you can put together mock scrapes for whitetails that can be really, really effective, and putting a camera on that, so you can almost build a spot for the deer to hit. So it's a pretty cool technique that I would like to maybe try in the future. But other than that, if you're hunting a spot year over year, it's places where you see deer travel, specific places, deer trails with good sign. A lot of times we don't put our cameras out till like that end of summer kind of timeline. So then we can get like a few months of good data going into the rifle season. But there's a bunch of different strategies. A lot of guys do it over the summer. But yeah, I would say sign and then checking them periodically, because, that sign will move throughout the year. Like that sign will probably be pretty similar in that April to May timeframe as it is in that October to November, because you're getting fairly similar weather, you're getting similar daylight. But throughout the summer, they're going to do different things, and that's going to change. So if if you have the time, like I would say stay diligent, mess around and move stuff. But yeah, more than anything, unless you like have a spot, the deer are moving, and you don't need to look for sign to know that spot. Like I would base it pretty much solely off of trails and, poop and rubs and scrapes and things like that.
The answer to the last bit I was going to ask it, what is sign, for those of you who don't know, and that's, when usually it seems ridiculous, but when you're seeing deer poop along a track, that's usually, it's easy to see. It sits there for a while. Obviously tracks are there too.
One thing I will add though, and if anybody's listening and you have tips that you're willing to share, feel free to send them our way. Mule deer seem like next to impossible to get on trail camera. Yeah. The one way that I've heard that works fairly well is like water sources. And we'll get mule deer here and there on camera. But like even in places where we know they hang out, we cannot seem to get consistent photos. Like we'll get one photo of a really nice buck that happens to be passing by. We know he's in the area because we've seen him while hunting and scouting, but we'll get one photo the whole season. So I don't really have a clue as to how to get mule deer on camera, to be honest with you, because they just don't really pattern the same way as whitetails. They just kind of go where they want to go, and they don't really seem to like follow the same trails as much as whitetails do, or like even if they use the same trail, it's not like they use it every day.
Correct.
It's like they use it one day, and then they might use it again 2 weeks later, and then they might not use it again at all. It's so if anybody's got tips on getting mule deer on trail camera.
Gates are supposed to be good. Open gates are supposed to be good, because muleys apparently don't like to cross fences. So they, guys have said put them on gates, but then gates.
You got people driving in and out. Yeah.
No, it's not that. Anything that sticks out that's easily accessible, guess what? A cow's going to rub.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
and they'll destroy your cameras.
Yeah,
or
knock them off onto the ground,
opposite direction, so they're staring into a bush or pointing to the ground. Or we've had elk knock them off trees and stuff.
Bears
like that.
Too. If you're dealing with bears love to peel them off trees,
and they like to bury them for some reason. They'll rip them off a tree. Yeah, we had it happen several times
in the ground.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like they're playing with them and they just get
That's
mad at them
sweet.
and shove them in the ground or something like that.
You'll get like a picture of like the side of the bear like 10 or 15 yards out, and then it'll be like a picture of him close up, and then it'll just be like 3 pictures of black and then nothing. Like,
or his mouth or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
and then nothing, and you see the corner of the camera sticking up out of the ground or the strap or something like that. I don't know. They just don't like them. I guess they get mad at them. But normally, like with my nephew and brother and stuff, they put them up, up in the
high.
air,
Yeah.
on a smaller tree that they're less likely to climb, and
Mm.
when they're looking for bears.
Yeah.
But ours were, trail cameras for deer, and for some reason, I don't know if they can hear a sound or something they don't like, and they just.
I think they're just smarter, whether
Yeah,
it's
well-
seeing or smelling or hearing or what.
Elk are pretty smart because they seem to
Yeah.
really enjoy pushing on our cameras and stuff, and we get eyeball pictures and so on. But as far as locations, obviously food sources, if you have them, pinch points, funnels, anything that's going to force an animal into a certain spot, narrow points between patches of cover, open ground, narrow points between patches of cover, because that's actually kind of how we zeroed in on his buck a little bit. Was trying to figure out what's the narrowest point from water to this obvious bedding area that he's staying in, and we found a light trail going under a fence, put a camera in the edge of the bedding area, and there
Got
it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some strategy to it and stuff. I mean, the cool thing is we get some insane pictures of things happening. We had pictures of 5 coyotes playing. We've had
Coyotes pouncing on mice and stuff.
mice. We've had coyote actually in the air jumping at a deer that's drinking in a pond, and the deer's like off the ground going away, and the coyote's in midair. Pheasants,
Turkeys,
bobcats, turkeys,
raccoons.
raccoons sometimes, porcupines. Well, there's just some really cool pictures that we've saved over time. They're on the cards. We just leave them on the cards.
Yeah.
But just some really interesting, unique pictures of things you wouldn't otherwise or aren't likely to see.
Which is the cool thing about this technology.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, barring last year and, Ryer trying to pinpoint toad so he could hunt him with a bow. The main reason for our cameras is really who's there, who's grown up,
Yeah.
what are our opportunities, where do we set our sights, and at least muleys are really hard, but one photo a lot of times is like, okay, we've got a really good animal in the area. Whitetails, we're watching them grow over time. Like we know toad and hook are 5.5. Well, they'd be 6.5 this fall. We know how old they are. Like really close, because we've been getting them year after year and we've watched them progress. And so knowing that they're there creates a lot of excitement. And so that's a lot of it for me, is just we take a lot of people hunting too. And so it's like, okay, helping them with their expectations.
Yeah.
So it's like we can show them the pictures to get them excited, but then it's like, you set your own, goals or whatever it's going to be. If it's just meat, fine. If it's bigger than the last, fine. So we use them for a lot of different, and it's fun, and it's a great time to be out. We find sheds quite often throughout the year when we're checking or scouting. Fun just to get out there and walk around and see what's going on.
Amen.
Flowers. I mean, depending on the time of the year in the prairie, you just have all these different things happening throughout the year. And
Plums.
plums, yeah.
Plums.
Yeah, one picked a lot of plums last year.
Plums are, there's,
Plums are the juice.
yeah, plums are the juice. We have some great story about a plum. You want to share that one?
Which
Well,
you
just
talking
any
about,
one
like-
of them.
going back to what Ryer said, I'm trying to think if we had any mule deer consistent on camera. We have the barrel.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only one I can think of.
Well, so the one consistent thing, if we get those dog days of summer when it's like 100 and plus, finding that shade, because on where we're putting up trail cams, there's not very many trees, right? And there's one solid tree row that will get them. And I don't know if you guys know this, or if you've noticed this, but we get muleys, and we get whitetails. They don't mix within, and we're talking hours, right? They'll be walking by. But that's the big one. If we are getting muleys, it has to be those hot days. Otherwise, it's whitetail does pretty much all the time.
Well,
right.
We had that one like all through like September.
Yeah,
the barrel.
Yeah.
The big dude who had
the big fat,
the thin antlers. He's this like huge bodied deer, and he's got like thin little like fork antlers. I mean, they're tall, but
yeah,
it's weird.
I forgot about that one.
But he's the only one we've had, and he walks through the same tree row that we have a cam in basically all year. But other than that, I don't think we've had any consistent.
Yeah, there was 3 muley bucks, but there was definitely one that was bigger. But just I mean, so many stories. We could probably show these. There was this one muley like fawn, and man, it, like laugh out loud. You would just like every time you'd see them, you'd see this muley doe, big old ears, just come, and it's always at night. And so we have these video so they record videos. I'm kind of addicted to that too. I can do the pictures, but it's so much cooler when you get the sound, you get everything. And so you just in the frame you see this doe just come walking in, and then all of a sudden you hear this doof, 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 and this little doe, this little fawn just comes flying into the frame and out. And then one time he as he was going past his mom, just smoked her one in the back and just like launched off her. And it was, it's comical. And you could just see her just, she kind of like, whatever, But then we had bucks messing with each other. That's kind of cool. And that same little fawn, you could like, they're playing, they're running up and down the tree rows, and you get an eye into a different time of year, which is what I think is pretty cool, because you see a lot of stuff during deer season, but the nocturnal habits of them is really cool. And you can tell when they go nocturnal. But just to your point, you almost get a personality of these things, right? And how they, it's like the one that we saw. It's not always the biggest buck is the dominant one, or the one that's throwing his weight around. It's, you just kind of get a sense of who they are. And this is the first year that we ever got real serious with it. So we don't, like you guys, I don't know that we have generations of deer that we know of, but we have enough of them that we'd be able to see, yeah, that's definitely him or the barrel. I like that.
So based on what you said about checking cameras and pulling cards, I'm assuming you're using like standalone cameras that aren't like cell connection.
Correct. I was going to ask you guys about
that.
Yeah. We wouldn't, there might be one spot where we'd be able to have cell coverage, that's the concern with it. And I don't know, I just kind of, there's something fun about, it's like opening a present, this is fun going out and be like, what did we get?
Right.
Yeah.
That's for anybody who's not familiar, like the classic trail camera, which they still make lots of them, are just, it's essentially just a camera that has a motion trigger. There's various different kinds of lights and like systems that cause those cameras to trip. You can change the shutter speed settings and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of them you can set to video or burst or like still photos. But it's just a camera with an SD card in it that trips with motion. And then the other category is these cell cameras, which are essentially you have a SIM card that you put into the camera for a given like cell carrier. Verizon, AT&T are the big ones, but whatever it might be. And then those cameras will transmit the photos, with some level of latency. It'll transmit the photos from the camera to your phone when they're taken. And it requires like a subscription service, So those are getting ever more popular. There's a number of states that have regulations as to I think Montana, you can't have the cell camera function like active during the hunting season.
Really?
Because that way it's like, oh, I got this camera, this deer's here 5 minutes ago and it's out back, you know, in the back 40, like I can drive the 4-wheeler out there and I know this deer's going to be within probably half a mile of the spot by the time I get there.
I've heard of people doing that, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people do, you know, use the technology that's available to you. We don't have that luxury because we have a bit of a drive to get to our spots and then a bit of a walk after the drive and all that kind of stuff. But that's something, if you're considering, like, definitely pay attention to those regulations. There might even be some states where it's outlawed altogether to use cell cams. I'm not 100% sure.
There's been a lot of discussion about it.
Right. It's one of those things, like, it'll probably go away. Like, a lot of that restrictive legislation will probably go away. Like, there's tons of stuff like that, like archery. For the longest time, like, lighted knocks were like an issue because it was like electronics involved. And there's states where just in the last couple of years have legalized lighted knocks. You know, there's a big argument to be made about lighted sights. That's another one. Those are becoming much more like acceptable. But for a long time, like, I think I would have to double check. But like,
what's the reason for not wanting a lighted knock?
I think it's just adding
associated.
electronics associated with the weapon. Because archery was, you know, it's however primitive. Like Pope and Young, they have their rules as to like what's considered official. So there's like let off standards and like minimum poundage and all these kinds of things. I don't want to. I probably shouldn't go off onto a tangent about it.
I asked the question.
The lighted knocks thing is very is close to me because I think that although it's adding like less primitive components, like I think it's an ethical benefit because you're able to get a better idea of like how the shot is. You're more easily able, especially in lower light conditions, to find your arrow and be able to inspect the arrow and be like, okay, this was a gut shot or a liver shot or a lung shot or heart, or whatever it is. Anyway, I'm going to move past that before it sucks me in. But check the rigs. We just put out a couple of cell cams last year for the first time that my dad received as a gift. They're Stealth Cam brand. They've been awesome. We kind of focused our efforts with those cell cams around that one deer that I was talking about earlier in terms of like trying to hone in on him because that way I could get a better idea of, you know, when he's showing up where.
Yep.
And those cell cams they basically have like little transmitters or weather stations in them depending on what you get, so you can get like readings of like the barometric pressure and the temperature and the wind speed and direction and all these kinds of things when the picture was taken. So if you're trying to pattern a deer, you know, it could be a couple small changes in inches of mercury in the pressure, like that shows you why that deer's there at a certain time, or a couple a certain temperature he always shows up, or wind or whatever. So that's really nice for that. And I will say that I agree with you though, like pulling that SD card and checking it is fun because it's like there's all that anticipation. But the same goes for the phone, is like you get that little ding and it's like, ooh, like I wonder if this is the one, you know. It's like the best notification. I'd rather get it than a phone call or a text message or any of that during deer season. I'm like, yes, like here we go. Speaking of which, I was looking on my phone earlier. I got a picture this evening, just like an hour and a half ago, of a young buck getting some nubs on his head.
That's
starting
awesome.
to grow antlers. So it's cool to see that. Like that, those are normally not photos we'd get because we don't leave our cameras out this long. But it's fun, like you said, seeing the kind of personalities, if you will, or behaviors of the deer. And then the other thing I would say too is, like you said about being able to manage your expectations, whether even if you're a new hunter, it's great, but even if you're a seasoned hunter with a certain property, you got to work with the deer that are there. And out here in this open country, a lot of times these deer don't stay perennially. Like they'll move on and you'll never see them again. So we can kind of get a good sense of like how particular do we want to be with holding out for like a nicer animal with a buck tag, because we can say, oh, we've got a bunch of mature deer on camera, or we've got like only one, so maybe we shouldn't be as picky, kind of thing. So it's good for managing your deer herd.
Yeah, and I suppose this is kind of a hot topic, but you know, managing your does too, right?
Yep.
You know, if you know the ratios that you want to maintain, I don't know that we're anywhere near that. In my deer biology kind of thing, what is the recommendation? You guys have
Depends on what you want. Depends on your habitat, things like that.
Prairie,
what
North Dakota, Square
carrying
mile, how many?
capacity is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's like what will the land handle? You know, carrying capacity is, you know, the optimum number of deer that are still reproducing and they're healthy and so on. You know, once they exceed carrying capacity, then body weights can go down, and you know, for guys that chase antlers, you can start seeing bucks that aren't as healthy. If you have a high buck to doe ratio, meaning, or low buck to doe ratio, meaning that you have a lot of does and only a few bucks, then they don't really have to rut. You won't see the activity. You know, you won't see as many scrapes. You won't see as many rubs and things like that. They don't have to. You know, and so if it's the other way, like when you look at some of these big ranchers in Texas and stuff, they're probably looking at a 1-to-1, 1-to-2, you know, 1-to-3, something like that, right? So those deer are fighting.
Yeah.
They're aggressive. You can call them because there's a lot of competition out there. And so there's a whole host of things that, you know, you would look at. I mean, down in Missouri, you know, it might be, you know, something like 80 deer per square mile is okay. I mean, that's within carrying capacity, you know, but up here it's not going to be anywhere near that, most likely. And so you can kind of start to learn about your animals and what's going to happen. And one of the other things I'd point out too is that when you stare at these deer on camera for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it is, when you see the animal, even at a distance, maybe not even without your binoculars, you may know the animal instantly.
Yeah.
You know, because of just the frame and everything, you just instantly, like, I know that deer. I mean, we have does that we know.
Yeah.
Right. We had one that had this really crazy wispy tail. Like, it was the weirdest thing. There's big white wisp. Remember that? And she was around for a few years. And we had one that had a half an ear.
Yeah, it was split, I think. Yeah.
Or split. That's right. Split. Things like that, you know, so I can actually start identifying animals, you know, and knowing who's who. We got an elk that's missing his back left foot. And he is a giant. We thought he'd die, you know, because I think we had pictures of him 2 years ago and then again last year, and he just erupted. His antlers are insane. And I saw him physically this year from a distance, but he getting around finding, it seemed like he maybe owned a neighborhood in one section of the ranch because it seemed like he might have been a dominant bull there.
Old tripod.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny.
That's cool.
I mean, to watch him, if you see him walk, like physically see him, you know him immediately. I mean, these elk were probably, when I saw him, I don't know what that is, probably a mile or more away. You were hunting, you were bow hunting for toad, and I was up on the bluff. And that might be a mile and a quarter, something like that. As soon as he walked out I knew who it was immediately, just by the way, his gait. You know, so there's just a lot of cool things about prepping for the season. There's a lot of things that we've learned. You know, don't put your cameras on trees that are easily accessible to cows and elk. Yeah. Because they'll rub them. Not maybe because they may not be rubbing it because it's the camera, but if the tree sticks out, so they're rubbing.
That's what they're going to rub on.
They're going to rub on, right? You know, we don't put cameras on posts for that same reason. You know, there's places we'd like to put a post in the ground, put a camera on it out in the prairie because there are no trees and we know there's an established route. We've seen the deer using it and stuff like that. That camera's not going to last. Correct. Because they're going to rub on it. You know, so sometimes we try to set them back a little bit so it's not an opportunity, or, I mean, we've sometimes put them on really small things low to the ground. I mean, we had one at the pond, that thing was foot off the ground or something like that.
Yeah, and it was wrapped around like a clump of brush basically instead of an actual tree because there wasn't any real like legit trees there. So you got to make do with what you got.
Yeah. We've actually, I don't know, we had one a couple of years ago. I don't know why I did it, but I climbed up in a tree because the tree was down out into a little bit of a ditch, and I couldn't get the camera pointing where I wanted it to. And so I climbed up in the tree. Yeah. And I set the camera so it would get that little flat, you know, deer across the fence. And So we've done a lot of things. I mean, we put cameras back to back just because, we want to see up and down, type of thing, playing around. I don't know, 16 cameras now, something like that.
I think 14 was the number last year, maybe.
14.
Dang.
But the cool thing is now, though, is that you can get, cameras, they're not cell cameras, but you can get really nice regular cameras to take SD cards that you have to check for real cheap money.
Yeah.
Really good cameras.
Yeah.
I looked at some the other day at Fleet Farm, just glanced at them, and I think they're like $60, and they got a 0.4 second trigger
response
speed
time, yeah.
Which is
Shutter
awesome.
speed, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fast. I'm used to, like, ours are like a second, a lot of them. Some of them are 7/10, some stuff like that. But you can get some really good cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and some really good exercise.
Yeah. It gets you out there. I'll send you one. There's one that you get used to these in the interface. My brother-in-law pointed us to these. He got Gentry some for his birthday. I'm just addicted to these things. They take amazing video, and we never get false positives, right? Well, it has to be like a rockin' windstorm,
Right?
Like straight line crazy winds. And there'll just be like one or two of them that we've seen. But
What's the brand?
They're stealth cams.
Yeah, are they stealth cams?
Pretty sure.
We use mostly the Wild Game Innovations because they're like you said, they're good quality, cheap. You can mess with the settings, and a lot of times they'll come with batteries and an SD card, so you don't have to go out and buy those extra components. Because some of them, a lot of those ones, especially the maybe a little bit cheaper ones, can only use SD cards that are so large. So make sure you check your cameras, turn them on, make sure they work.
Yeah.
Put the cards in before you actually take them out in the field, because it's nothing worse than going to your spot an hour and a half away or whatever, and then getting back to it and you don't have a single photo because you put in a 64 gig card and the thing can only take 32.
Yeah, and it's been sitting there, and it's been sitting there for 2 weeks, and you're just like, yes, I know it's gonna be good. Not one picture,
and you'll still have malfunctions.
Which one did you
but
do that for?
Not telling you.
Can't be either of mine. They take 200.
No, it was one of the. I think it was one of the ones I bought. I bought one from Fleet Farm, and it came with a 32 gig card, put a 128 gig card in, and that's something you got to pay attention to. Bigger isn't always better.
That's right.
Yeah,
especially with those videos, pictures. I mean, the amount of 24 megapixel pictures or whatever they are that you can get on a 16 gig card is pretty outrageous. You're almost never going to run out of room. But if you start doing videos, or you start having if you grab a Reconyx camera that's taking whatever it is, 48, 61 megapixel pictures or whatever, super, super high resolution, or videos, that's great, but it takes up storage fast. And that's one thing I do like about the cell cams is you can manage the storage from your phone. You can go in and delete photos a lot. I have mine set up to take a test photo every day, so I know if they're working or not. Mm-hmm. And so you can go through and delete those photos to kind of preserve storage. Cool. So you guys are encouraging me. I want to set at least one of those to video once we go out and replace the batteries and stuff, because I've seen a lot of trail cam videos and I was nervous about the storage last year. I didn't want to take it up, but now that I know how they work, I'm I could just delete all the videos I don't want. So it's not really a concern.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. So it's the Garder Pro.
GARDE.
Garter.
Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
GARD.
AS3 specifically is the one that we have for what's
There's
weird.
no R at the end of it, so he said
Yeah. Yeah, it's Gardy Pro. Sorry.
Gardy. That's the brand, is Gardy.
Yeah.
Huh. Never heard of that.
All one word, GARDEPRO. And then the one we have is specifically in A3S. And it, like I said, I've been super impressed with the video. You can put, you could do. I got addicted to the video. I mean, we could do the pictures, but it's so cool being able to, and it's triggered off the sound. So that's the other cool thing is a lot of times the video will start and you'll hear the deer walk into the frame.
That's cool. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, and that's That's been one of the cool ones too.
That's interesting too.
Yeah. So, anyways, I've been pretty impressed. I'm a cheapo, so it's like $71.99 on
That's
Amazon
on sale.
right now, and that's on sale. Anyways, Amazon.
We buy
Buy
cheap.
now.
I've always bought cheap ones because of bears, cows, and elk.
Yeah.
Well, and they work
Yeah.
good.
You're gonna.
And they do.
We don't really have a need to spend $350 on one. One thing I will say though that I think is a little bit more of a concern for people out west, or especially in the Midwest, like prairie, open country, Great Plains, whatever you want to call it, is the wind, which we've touched on a little bit. That can be a huge deal. So like, there's been times where we've like, we really want a camera here, but it's kind of open. So like, we'll take a machete or something, clippers, whatever, and we'll knock down grass, we'll knock down brush, in order to try to prevent, like, it helps with pictures, but prevent like that wind moving the vegetation and causing, or like clipping branches and stuff around. You got to be careful to an extent, like if you're doing that stuff on public land, because there's different rules as to like damaging, vegetation. But a lot of this is on private, so we don't have to like worry about it too much. But being able to kind of set the scene in a way when you set up that camera is really important. And that's another thing I will add with the cell cams is you can set that thing up and be standing there in front of it. And if you have decent service, it'll send you a photo. So like while you're setting it up, you can see exactly what it's covering. The old ones that we used to have, they were like these old, big, huge Bushnell cameras. They actually had a little red laser that pointed out.
Yeah.
So we would like get our hand in front of the laser and walk it back to make sure it was shooting, which was really handy.
Oh, no kidding. That
Right.
you could see.
You could see it was like a little red dot, like in the
Yeah.
movies when somebody's got like a sniper on them. That's exactly what it was
Flip a
like.
button and it would shoot
Really?
the beam, and then you
You
try
know
to get
exactly.
you
Oh, yeah.
know how high it is off the ground and stuff like that. You know.
But the wild game ones we use, they don't have that. So it's a little bit of guesswork. And we've gotten pretty good at it over the years using the same cameras. But that is one nice thing about the cell cams is being able to like take that photo, or whether it's motion or you actually like manually trigger it and look at the photo on your phone before you leave the camera, so you can make sure it's like the field of view is covering what you want. Because I don't even know how many times we've set up cameras that everything was kosher, and then we end up looking at it and it's like tilted, or it's like there's a tree right in the way, so you like block half the, a lot of times you can get around it pretty easily, but there's always stuff that you miss that,
One tip: don't point it into the sun.
Yes.
Set it up.
Yeah.
Don't point it, due east into the sun or due west, because you get images of like the outline of an animal.
Right.
It's washed out by the sun, so try to orient them.
Sometimes you get some amazing pictures though too.
It's true.
That's
Well,
the
you
other-
do.
But
you
yeah, I
absolutely
hear ya.
do. But
I hear ya.
there's also sunrise, sunset.
Mhm.
You got to be careful, because then it's washing out, and then you got to reset your camera.
Yeah.
Because when do they travel?
Mhm. Yeah, that's the golden hour, right? You were talking about plums. Do you have any?
Oh, that was
yes.
a long
Plum
time
story?
ago.
You forget about it already?
No. This story is locked in the steel trap. So essentially, probably how long has it been since we fenced those trees to the east? 6 years.
Oh, you're talking about those ones? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, those are the only.
It's
plums.
been a while. No. Anyways, I got a different
probably
plum
like
story.
6 years ago. We have this tree row probably like a mile east of the house, I guess, at the private land we're at. And it's a great tree row. It's a lot of young pine trees. There's a couple deciduous ones in there. And it was just like, it was bad. Like every year the cows would run through, and these trees are like just big enough where they're, like obviously above your head, and they're probably like 9-10 feet tall, most of them, but obviously still young enough where if the cows are in them all year long, we'd see dead ones, like more and more dead ones every year. And so finally we were like, all right, we're just gonna 3-wire barbed wire, essentially in the corner of this pasture, try and help these trees, because you're not essentially removing any grazing ground. It's basically just trees for the cows to rub on. And so we went through with that, and that's probably been 5-6 years ago, and it's not grazed anymore. It's probably like a 500 yard by 300 yard. Well,
No, it's probably like a half mile by
like 500 yards.
Yeah.
So it's essentially just this big rectangle in the corner of this field. But the deer and the grouse especially, not so much the pheasants, but the grouse especially have been loving it. And so we have a camera in there, and you'll see deer walk the trails, but in the very, very corner of what we fenced off, there's a little, essentially it's just a low spot, but it holds water pretty much year round, and there's these plum trees that are around it. And they weren't planted, to my knowledge.
No, they're wild.
Yeah. And it's really cool because there's like probably 6 of them in this like half semicircle, and then this pool's in the middle. And one year I was like, well, I always have them in the, because I've been doing the cameras for like probably 3-4 years. This is the only year, last year was his first year he started paying attention. And one year I was like, well, I'm just going to try it in these plums. You know, I see deer walking these trails all the time. I wonder if they're like how much they're eating off these plums, because I know they're eating off them. And the first time I checked it, like 2 weeks after I put it out, I had some does come through. And I had this buck, well, that was probably 3 years ago. He's a decent buck now. I call him Basket because he's this little whitetail, and he came out super close together, and then he came around, his points almost touched. And it was really cool because he was always in there like usually an hour after these does came in. Like the does would come through and then he'd come through. And like all year long. And I would always see him, he'd always pick up the plums and like chew them in his mouth, just like not off the ground. And so he'd always hold one up in front of the camera. And probably like the third cycle, so like 6 weeks after I'd had this camera out, because I usually check him like every 2 weeks if I can. He finally figured out where the camera was, I guess, because he came up and for like 3 nights in a row just licked it. Like not once or twice, like 3 nights in a row, he came back like in the night and would eat his plums and then lick the camera. I don't know for what reason. And I eventually moved the camera because he kept licking it so much. So that camera's back in the tree row now. But they do eat the plums in there, I can confirm. And it was only whitetails in there that I saw. I don't think I ever saw a mule deer in there.
I forget about that place. That's a legit spot. That's kind of some of the temptation, you know, like we're blessed that we have a lot of land to cover, but you have these, you know, within that we could throw another one in there and you probably get more, but you know, you want to know what's a mile and a half that way versus, you know, I kind of know what's here. Not far from there's another group of plums, just on a side bit. Bees are amazing because
our neighbor got bees.
Yeah, our neighbor got bees, and my father-in-law would talk about the orchard and these plum bushes, and we're like, what are you talking about? I've never seen them. The bees moved in, and these plums, man, poof, all of a sudden these bushes just, those are plum bushes, right? And so this other spot this last year, you know, we had all the crazy windstorms. Well, there was this part of this branch of this plum bush busted off and went down. And we had, in one frame, we had video of this. There's 6 raccoons, and then there was probably 4 or 5 white-tailed does, and they're not fighting, but they're not cool with each other being there, you know. And these coons are up in the trees, you know, and just doing raccoon things. Like that's the kind of cool things that you get to see. And so that one we didn't we have another one that we put on video that it doesn't have any audio. And that one I wish we could have had because, you know, those things, like you start to get an idea of the noises that deer make, but then raccoons are even a whole nother level, right? And that would be cool to see too. But yeah, those plums, man, everything loved those. I mean,
right.
Coyote was in them probably just because there was, you know, like every night the deer were eating them, the raccoons were in them. There was corn. They planted corn there not far from there this year. So I think we're going to get a lot more raccoons. Some people think I don't know what you guys think. Some people get frustrated with seeing animal that's not deer, but I kind of like it. You know, you get an idea of what's around, right? Skunks, there was skunks in there too.
Squirrels.
We don't have a lot of squirrels.
Same squirrel all the time.
Yeah.
Same magpie all the time.
Yeah.
On the same limb.
I get frustrated by coyotes, not really in pictures, but hunting. That's probably the only thing I would say because they can blow up a deer hunt really fast.
Oh yeah.
We have had a couple of frustrating instances with sharp-tailed grouse where they'll give away your position, you know, and a lot of times the deer are like keyed in, especially if they're not that far away. They're keyed into the grouse, so the grouse start chirping and jumping and flying around, or they flush out and the deer will stand up. And it's like, man, if it wasn't for these dang sharp-tails,
I'd be able to get in here.
I would have been able to get another 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, yards. And that actually happened to us this past season. And it was kind of funny because we were talking about it that same day. Like, all those grouse will screw you up sometimes, and then it happened. So it's more, not as much for the coyotes, but for other animals. For me, it's like, it's more of a fun thing, like just experiencing the outdoors, seeing the animals mostly in like an untouched, undisturbed manner. I feel like it helps you appreciate creation for what it is, it's like,
absolutely.
That's why we like walking and not driving and not riding around side by sides or doing all that kind of stuff, because you have so many opportunities where you get to see stuff that if whatever is going on was aware that there was a human around, like it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's, like we've told the stories about seeing the bobcat chasing the grouse and then the deer chasing the bobcat, or the birds landing on my head or whatever, like all that kind of stuff. Anybody who's spent much time sitting still in the woods, like you get some pretty incredible moments. And the trail cameras is something like with the video mode, I didn't even think about like being able to capture that and experience that without actually stepping foot in there. So I'm definitely motivated to switch over to video mode.
It's cool. We've had pheasants fighting. We've had this past camera. We had turkeys on it for the first time in a while. We had a nice tom in there, and then there were a couple jakes that moved through after.
Which was cool. It was like, well, just you get an idea of the noises those things make. Like all the just those super soft noises of walking through, like you guys were saying. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Another cool thing about video is there was one winter, probably like 2 years ago. Deer season had ended, and my dad was super into ice fishing at this point, like he still is, and I wasn't nearly as keen on going ice fishing that fall. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna really try predator hunting this fall, or this winter, I guess it would be. And I was like, well, how do I try and see, like, because obviously you get coyotes on your deer spots, but those are like not consistent usually. And I was like, well, how do I get coyotes on my camera consistently? And I was like, this deer gut pile was cool. It was his deer that year.
Oh yeah.
And I was just trying to see, because this was close to one of my calling spots. It was probably like 200 yards away, just up this kind of hill above this dam, because I usually call it the bottom of the dam. And I was trying to see, like, what times are they in there? Does the weather matter? Just stuff like that. And the single coolest video I've ever got on trail cams was I would have pictures of crows and like magpies and stuff on it throughout the day, and then the coyotes and the foxes and badgers would come through at night. And it was a really foggy day. Like you couldn't see much beyond this. You could see a little bit beyond this pile of bones essentially at that point. And it starts, and it's a magpie and a raven on it. And then, like, out of the descending fog, this bald eagle comes down and, like, scares them both away and sits on top of it. And then it ends, and I had, like, 20 more videos of this bald eagle just, like, chasing away these magpies and stuff. And that was really cool.
But do you remember what did it have in its talons? You remember that?
No, I don't, actually. What are you talking about?
So it was cold, like, stupid cold, like, because it was after deer season. It had a bluegill.
Really?
In its and it was like, where did you get a bluegill?
I remember that, yeah. It had a
like,
fish in its talons, and it was like, it had to be from the. Oops.
Oh yeah, well, that's a good point. That's probably where it was.
It doesn't matter.
That's a great. Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean,
that's the
that
only
would have
place
been.
that didn't freeze. By that point, it was December.
Yeah, because that dam he's talking about has bluegill in it, but it would have had 6 inches of ice on it. But yeah, that like you just think of that super, like, stereotypical bald eagle come flying in, talons just like coming in and
I
just
forgot about the fish.
spooking everything.
Because I was confused when I was going to the gut pile because I had a fish.
Yeah,
and I remember that. And
it's
defended the pile for a while.
Yeah,
these crows and magpies were all over it. But was that where you were going before you?
No, it wasn't. That was it. That was a great story.
And you guys have any cool things that
about
weren't deer?
Well, there's a lot of them. It's hard to think about. As there's something every year that's crazy, goofy. Like I said, we save kind of the interesting ones. Fawns nursing on their mother and stuff like that.
Yeah,
things like that. So fawn like with his face in the camera. Things. There's just a lot of really cool images that you get that you wouldn't otherwise, or most likely wouldn't see.
Well, like you said earlier, Dan, is like that. Essentially, it's not fully the case, but for that spot that your camera covers, you're essentially getting like a omnipotent view
Yeah.
of what's going on. And anything that crosses that trail, that path, or if you set stuff up along a trail, like you can kind of monitor a certain area. So it feels like sometimes like a little bit of a cheat code.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we generally get a little optimistic. Like it doesn't ever seem to work out that well when you like think you have something nailed down from trail cameras.
Oh yeah.
Which is different than God, because obviously he's got it all, and figured out. But yeah, it's a really good way to do a lot of management stuff, and just getting that sense of what the animals do when they go where. I think that's one of the biggest things for like improving your hunting success with trail cameras. But with the animal kills, one thing I thought of was there's a number of places like the university that I went to, University of Montana. They have a pretty big like wildlife biology program. They do a lot of stuff with research with trail cameras, which is really cool. They'll set them up over kills, or they'll set them up over dens that they find of animals, and get these super close-up images of grizzly bears and mountain lions, and really cool stuff out in western Montana. So there's so much potential. Like most people think of it as hunting applications, but security, if you want to see somebody going in and out of your property, it's a great way to do it, especially with those cell cams. You can get a real time, for the most part, view. Super handy.
I won't say it on here.
No, I think you can. Maybe we're saying the same thing. We kind of thought we had somebody walking off with some propane. Right, so it was like we'll put this one in, and it stopped. So
yeah,
anyways,
I was gonna say something else, but never mind.
All right, well, so I don't know where you're going with that, but know the law, like you were talking about earlier. I looked this up. So we're all blessed to be on private land, but if you're on public land, there's specific rules, and this is on the North Dakota Game and Fish website. So cameras may not be put up on state wildlife management areas, U.S. Corps of Engineers lands, federal wildfowl production areas, or NFSL. What's NFSL?
National NFSL?
Yeah. November Fox Sierra Lima. Anyways.
Corps doesn't allow cameras?
They gotta
wait. I'm not done with the sentence.
All right.
Before August 20th, and they shall be taken down by July 31st. And this fall, it's
so
tree
pretty
stands
much the whole year you can have them out.
Yeah.
Other than 20 days in August.
Yeah. No, August 20th through January 31st.
Oh, January.
I thought you said
January.
July.
Oh, I'm sorry. January 31st. Well,
Right.
man,
Okay,
if I
so-
said
so
July, I'm
hunting
sorry.
season.
Yeah. Tree stands, steps, ground blinds, and trail cameras not removed by January 1st are considered abandoned property and are subject to removal, confiscation by they'll take them. In North Dakota, you need to label them, right? So you can apply for and get an equipment ID, or you just put your name on it. That's the expectation if you're gonna be doing this on public land. So, anyways, know the laws, right? It is a cool technology, and if you don't have access to private land, you can still do this. Just pay attention to the laws. And the like anything that there's really some unfortunate incidents here. Just because you put your camera there doesn't mean you own that land, right? Same thing with you can't put up a tree stand. That doesn't mean you own that tree. It's still public land, right? And you got to be careful. We've talked about that too.
Yeah, you got to be willing to take the risk of somebody jacking with it or taking it all together, because that, sometimes on public land we've seen, especially like Montana and stuff, you see there's lock boxes that you can put on trail cameras, so people can't take the card or take the camera, or you put up your tree stands. Like, there's a good chance somebody might walk in there and cut your straps and cut it down. Like, they're not supposed to, but unfortunately, the law doesn't stop people from doing things, especially when you're out in the middle of nowhere and it's easy, relatively, to do things without getting caught. Not that I'm, condoning that, but so if you put something out in public land, even if you're following all the laws, like, you probably should be something that's to some extent expendable to you, because there's a good chance, you won't find it again,
Yeah.
depending on where you go.
I liked what you said earlier about if you do something and you think about your son doing it, does that change your mentality? Then you probably shouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah.
You know, that would be one of the it's just I'm just messing with this person. Well,
They gotta make
You know-
lock boxes for minnow traps.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Minnow traps get stolen more than you think, man. Especially if it's on any sort of like even moderately like fished or
Oh, if you
boated or anything body of water.
yeah, especially if you. I guess I've never heard people do minnow traps with creek chubs, but that would be a whole deal. Those things are cash money, man. Those are that's
In
a
the
whole
spring.
other. Yeah, right now. If you got a creek chub spot, I'd love to know about it.
Speaking of which, I've been thinking about this. We ought to do a fishing, like dedicated spring fishing episode here coming up because,
You're up next.
well, we can do it.
I was thinking about, and then not tying might be kind of boring, but we could, now that we have extra cameras, that would be
Yep.
something that we could
Definitely.
rig up.
What was that verse? You sent us another verse, not the Psalms one.
The Proverbs.
I think it was. Yeah, it was like
Proverbs
it
5.
was like weirdly precisely seemed to be related to like what we were talking about with like trail cameras and watching over. Maybe you did read that.
Yeah. I think it was. So this is the thing with this wasn't the exact. I think that was a different translation. It was probably the New Living Translation, which I'm not a fan of that translation, but of this verse specifically, here I'll look it up. So it's Proverbs 5:21. Let me flip it.
You don't have to read it again if you're repeating it.
No, but it really it really hits home. For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch hold of him. He will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness. That's the one that when I read that verse, it's like, dang, there's so much going on there, and how you know that's just ropes that bind you, right?
Well,
God's got an infinite number of trail cameras out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Great way to look
that's
at
and you know, you guys kind of dove into it right out of the gate, but bringing it around full circle is, you know, we use these cameras to, you know, follow the path of the deer, right? To try to narrow down our target when it comes to hunting deer, let's say. And we're all have a target for walking with God. And we trip, right? We put the camera in the wrong spot. You know, we get grass photos, we get cattle pictures, you know, things like that. But if we learn from it, then we can narrow our focus and make, you know, really concentrate on that walk. And so that's what I was getting out of when you sent it, when you texted us this week's episode. That's where my mind went, was connecting that part of it, right? That we use it, but you can relate almost everything we do back to, you know, our trips, stumbles, falls, etc. But, you know, Ryer was talking about some people's version of, you know, God saying tis, and brought it back around to being a dad and saying, nope, I'm here. I'm going to pick you up. Let's do it again. You know, let's get it, you know, let's work on getting closer to getting it right this time. You know, so that's where my mind went with it all. So
I like that. Sometimes it's as simple as taking the camera. It's already on the right tree. You just got to turn it around to the other side of the tree. Like, you're close, you know, but you never know what's going on right back behind you. So there's been times, or so many times like that, where it's something as simple as just spinning it. And then all of a sudden it's like, all these deer have been here the whole time. I had no idea. Like,
And that's another thing that's
there's
cool about
my
the video
path.
is you can hear the stuff that's behind you. Like,
right.
I've heard a raccoon, or I assume it was a raccoon, but something's like crawling up the tree on the other side of my camera, and I can hear it like scraping the bark and stuff. Anyways,
was it slow or fast?
it was like it wasn't moving at a clip, but it wasn't crawling. It was somewhere in the middle there.
Oh, I remembered the one I was going to say. Do you remember when we put that fence post by that pond? You got so angry.
Oh, in the Buckley, yeah. This is one of the only times where I've had a fence post fail me, because normally, like, the guy we rent out to usually tells us the land that, well, my grandma owns.
Yeah.
He usually tells us, like, which pastures he's going to be putting his cattle in for the next, like, month or whatever, so we can kind of plan around that. but it's a super dry part of pasture. We call
No trees.
Yeah,
Not a tree anywhere.
It's like night
Yeah.
and day because we have the
Yeah.
Buckley on one side and the Manilovich on the others. And yeah, those seems like weird names, but they were frontier families that settled in this specific, in this pasture, I guess now it's all fenced. And the Manilovich side is like what you'd think of for whitetails here. It's got a creek running through it. It's got like a bunch of tall grass, bunch of little dips, raises, like nice thickets. And on literally the other side of this gravel road, we got the Buckley, which is like what you'd think of for muley. It's like clay cliffs. It's like high bluffs, some deep draws, like barely any trees.
Clay pans. Yeah, it's gnarly. It's cool.
Anyways, and there's one cattle pond in this, and then the Buckley is split down the middle with this north-south fence. And on the other side of it, there's a cow tank. And so I had to set on the cow tank for a while, and I'd get a lot of coyotes, a lot of antelope, and then some mule deer, and a couple whitetails because they intermingle somewhat. And then on the other side, there's this watering hole, this cattle pond. And I was trying to think, I was like, there's not a tree around here, and it's like I don't want to put it on like a reed or something. And then I was kind of thinking, and there's this draw that's just maybe like 500 yards, 600 yards north of this, or west of it actually. And it's like it's great for deer. It doesn't look like much. There's a little cut in the bottom of it. What?
Nothing. Just go.
No, he's spot on.
I'm trying to. Yeah. I was thinking about it from whatever. And there's
Depends
not
on which way you face.
Yeah, I was thinking about something else, and then.
No, you said west of it. Did you think you said left? Anyway.
I said north at first, and then I righted myself. But anyways.
That's east.
Anyways.
Go ahead.
I'm not talking about from the building. I'm talking about where I was standing when I set this camera. Anyways. Where was I? Oh yeah, there's no trees in this draw, so I threw a fence post in, right kind of where it spits out to this pond, and I come back 2 weeks later, and for whatever reason, this same meadowlark decided to sit on this post like every day, all day, for 2 weeks. Like it would be like I'd get maybe one picture of a deer, and then 30 pictures of this meadowlark's tail. And then it'd poop on my camera and then stain it, and then I couldn't see anything. So, like, the last week of it didn't even matter. But it was like at least every half hour, like every 30 minutes, this bird would have to come back and sit on this camera.
I think it was all day long because it was hundreds of pictures of this stupid bird.
And it's the same bird. Yeah. There was never, like, many types of birds sitting on this post. It was one meadowlark.
And mostly just tail feathers, just hopping. So the lesson learned on that one was, if you got that high point next to some water, something's going to be sitting on it, right?
It was in like the lowest spot of like.
Yeah, but we put a fence post up.
There wasn't any trees around.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we put a fence post up, so we made an artificial high point.
Right.
And
I thought about putting in like 2 more fence posts on either side of it without cameras, just to like entice.
Then you just have 3 meadowlarks.
Meadowlarks sitting there.
That thought came through my mind, and I just decided to scrap
the other thing that is the temptation that we did there is, we put the fence post in, we put the camera like right on the top of it. If we put it down a foot or 2 feet, we might have been able to get away from that. But
that bird was not ideal.
That valley is legit because that's the other thing. The reason why we put it there is I've probably seen 5 deer get shot in this valley. There's something about it. It's easy to approach because you can. It's an east-west valley, and so you can approach it from the north-south, which is where the road is. So you come in, and like I've done that a couple times where you peek into it, and it's like more often than not there's deer sitting in the bottom of this thing. So that was the idea, and this stock dam is right at the bottom of it, right? So we were like, hey, this is the place to be. Well.
It was a place to be for a bird.
We failed with the meadowlarks.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, I think that was everything I wanted to get to. The big, know the laws if you're gonna be putting anything up on public land, and the kind of one of the unwritten rules is if you're on private land, let the landowner know if you're going to be throwing these things up too. That's there's some places where you're supposed to have written permission, right? If the landowner and they're fine with it, that's one thing. But would you want somebody strapping a motion activated camera in your backyard? Kind of think of it like that too. There's the ethics to all this as well. So that's it. Anybody else? Words of wisdom?
Do
We have
wanna
a fact of the week?
Oh, yeah.
always.
He was waiting. He reached for his phone.
Yeah,
I
I
saw
know.
that.
It was locked and loaded. Any guesses on what it's on this week?
No.
Nope.
Oh, you guys
Probably
are-
some obscure statistic.
You guys are
Mhm.
boring. In the United States, what? I mean, like, it's hard to find North Dakota facts, man.
Hey, they could be anywhere.
Yeah.
In the United States,
We are in the United States.
many people go predator hunting. For coyotes specifically, what is the average success rate for a coyote hunter in the United States?
Ooh.
Per hunt. So, like, not overall throughout
Like
the
a
year.
Percentage.
Yes, like a percent. So if you were to hunt 100 days out of the year,
Yeah.
To
How
make
many
it easy for a
days?
percent.
How many
How many
days do
days
you
would you
shoot a
kill it?
coyote?
and this
I'm
is not
gonna say-
counting traps. This is strictly like calling.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
23%.
I'm a terrible predator hunter, so I'm gonna say I'm a little way lower. I'm gonna say like 13%.
41.
11%.
Oh, there you go.
for coyote.
Most, because I wonder if that's
That's hard
because
to believe.
most
Right.
people that predator hunt, I think, are. Well, I don't know about your guys' experience, but I know a lot of people that like predator hunting seems it's kind of like ice fishing in that it seems super cool. You know, you got the nighttime optics and you got the calls and you got all these things, and so all these people that are really into stuff, they just go all in, and then they realize, man, it's really cold out when you got to do this, and the light's terrible, and
Yeah.
the conditions aren't great, and if you want to get into it, that's one of those things, buy used stuff, because especially this time of year, people are just like, you know what, I just spent $3,000 on this scope and I don't like it.
Yeah. One thing I'll say that I think is the case with this statistic is, and also with like elk hunting is a big one that you hear about out in the mountains, is like the people that make up that success rate are like very consistently successful.
Yes.
And everybody else very unlikely to be successful. Like they say, like I think it's like 10% of elk tags in Montana or whatever get filled, and like most of that 10% are people that shoot an elk every year.
Every year. Yeah.
And most of that other 90% are people that have never killed an elk or shoot one once every 5-10 years. My guess is that's the case with, because I know I've heard of a number of guys that like go out and they'll shoot 100, 200 coyotes in a winter, but most other people that go out, you know, it's like, oh, I shot 2 or 3 or 6 or whatever over the whole winter. So that would be my guess, is like out of that 11%, it's probably like 9 out of 10 of those people are probably harvesting 90% of the coyotes that are getting taken.
Well, and there's a lot of people who will go out and sit one spot for, you know, however long they want to sit, and then just go home, where it's like some guys will be out, you know, all day, and they have a morning spot, and then they have a daytime spot that's closer to a den, and then, you know, you have your afternoons and your nights and all that.
Yeah.
So
We run and gun, man. 15 minutes and go. Next spot.
Pretty much.
No kidding.
Predator hunting episode coming your way in the future.
Maybe
During the day.
I've been trying to get this gentleman. So the one of our fans out there, he was texting me a while ago and was like, "Hey, I really like this episode." And he was like, how he started off was, "I'm sitting in my coyote blind and nothing was up, so I started to put you guys on." I was like, "That's awesome."
Nice.
Yeah. So shout out to Marvin. Hopefully we can get you on, because he's one of those guys where he's into it. Like if I wanted to get into it, I'd be talking to him, because it's like his passion. He just loves it. So
Well, I've got an alligator hunt in my past
Whoa.
that I would like to share, so maybe I'll save it for that episode. So.
that falls in predators. I like
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
I would consider
yeah.
it a predator hunt.
Heck yeah.
So.
Oh, that was the gator in the
Well,
house.
I don't think don't spoil it.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
I've got the hide.
Well, I just put that together.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yes.
I mean,
So anyway,
Yes.
That would be cool if we could put that thing up there.
it might be a little big for that wall.
not to
Really?
pride myself, but
It's pretty
it's pretty
big.
big. I don't know if it fit on that whole wall.
If he'd have got the one,
The one that we
somebody
found
hadn't
dead,
poached the one that he was supposed to be on, I don't know if he'd fit on that wall.
No kidding.
And that's all you get for
yes,
the
yes.
story.
There's the
How-
teaser.
Nope, I'm not
Oh,
saying anymore.
We're done.
I'm not saying it. Our 41 subscribers
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah,
Sit
there's
in
the
the
cliffhanger.
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right, we wrapped it up. Appreciate it, everybody. And yeah,
Club radio.
Club Radio on
like
Saturday
7.
night at 8 o'clock.
Yep.
8 o'clock. And then
Wildbound Media.
Wildbound Media. Somebody else
YouTube.
do this. I'm terrible at this.
YouTube, most of your social medias, Spotify.
Instagram.
Let us know. Let us know what you want to see. I mean, we've got a laundry list of ideas, but I'm just throwing it out there. If you guys want us to talk about anything in particular, we're game. So
It's not like we're experts or anything. It's not going to be specific, but it'll be there.
let us know.
Oh, we could do some research.
Yeah,
We could become experts.
Well, I
maybe.
can do some research on like bighorn sheep hunting, but that doesn't mean I'm going to know anything about it. Anyways.
All right. Appreciate y'all.